Hi, I'm the Rick and Rick Turns, and today I'm going to be turning this eyeglasses holder. Because nothing says utility like having a place to park your glasses. Hi, I'm the eyeglasses holder. I have several different glasses holders that I've made preparing for this video. This is my favorite one, even though it doesn't have some of the features of the other ones. But I like it because of the base. I like the square base. I made them with a round base, which is quite a bit easier to do, and I made them with the square base. I think the square base looks better, at least to me. This is another one. This one is walnut. This one right here, this is red oak. The walnut is quite nice. As you can see, this one's got the round base. The advantage of the round base, of course, is when you're on the lathe, you turn it round, you don't have to worry about squaring up the base of the piece. Plus, you can put a nice friction polish on there while it's still on the lathe. When you've got a square piece like this, of course, putting a friction polish on this part isn't really an option on the lathe. It's a little bit harder to finish that way. I made several different shapes. As you can see right here, kind of this flared shape right here. But this one distinguishes itself because it's got a holder here. This is for the glasses arms to go in. When you put the glasses on it, the arms fit down in there just like this. Now this really holds the glasses much better as opposed to this one right here. It will still rest on them and it works fine. I've been using it for a week or so. Works fine. But it's a little bit nicer to have the slot in the back. Slip the glasses on there, and it's more of a secure hold. This one is made out of water rope. It's very nice wood. I've still got some pieces of it from where a neighbor cut down a big limb off of a tree. This one's got the slot in it, of course, and since it's got a round base, the entire thing can be turned on the lathe. So let's go back to this and talk about sizing. What I normally do when I start one of these is to cut a blank about 7 inches long. Now this piece here, total overall size, looks like about 6.5. That pretty well squares up with cutting a blank 7 inches long. And the base of it is a little under 2 inches wide. That's what I found to be a good proportion for the square base ones. I've tried making them with a larger base, and I've tried making them with a smaller base. This one seems to look about the best of the ones that I've made. Let's talk about making a square-based glasses holder like this one. I want the blank to be about roughly that long right there. Room for a spigot down here, a tenon to put it in the chuck, a little bit of waste up here, so that I've got some room to play with it. And obviously this is way too wide. So I'm going to take this over to the bandsaw and I'm going to cut it down to about 2.5 inches on the side. And then I'm going to take it over to the table saw and finish the cutting. The reason I do that, I've got a very coarse blade in the bandsaw for cutting logs while they're green, 3 teeth per inch. You can see these marks all along here. That's what the bandsaw leaves with a coarse blade like that. But I want a fine blade. I don't want to have to spend hours finishing these little bitty squared edges. And the table saw, I've got a fine tooth blade in there. It works pretty well. I'll still have to do a little work on it. So to the bandsaw first, cut it down about 2.5, then to the table saw, square it up and cut it down to right around 2 inches. And at some point along the line, I'll cut the length down to about 7 inches as well. All right, let's head over to the bandsaw first. I've got the height adjusted to be, looks like it's about 1 inch over this. I'm going to lower that just a little bit, but not much. And then I've got a rip fence here. I'm going to set the rip fence at 2.5 inches. Okay, right on the money there. Okay, the first roar you hear is the dust collector. The second roar is the bandsaw. now I've got a block that is 2.5 inches on a side. On my table saw, I've got the blade raised up a little bit above the width of it. It's about 2 1/8 inches. It'd be more like 2 3/8 inches. This is set at roughly 2 3/8 inches. The first two cuts I make, two adjacent sides, will be to get those two sides clean. Then I will readjust this to 2 inches and make the last two cuts, which will give me the right size of the base. I've got this side and this side that have not been cut yet. I started off at 2 1/2. It's about 2 3/8, something like that now, because I cut down a minimum amount. I got the blade set up just above 2 1/2. So now I'm going to bring the rip fence up to 2 inches. Okay, 2 inches. Excellent. All right, for this block, I'm going to use this end down here as the base. It's got a little bit of a knot showing there, which will be somewhat attractive. Now, it's squared up and even, but it's still showing some tool marks along here. Some up there, which don't matter. These will all get turned away, but these down here I need to smooth off quite a bit. So I'm going to clamp this right here. And this is my somewhat old and dirty looking cabinet scraper. Okay. That looks pretty good. 3 sides to go. I think that's good enough. Now, once I take it off of the lathe, I'll sand this down with 220 and up, but it's good right now. I've got the blank set up here between centers. This is the bottom right here, and I'll be cutting a tenon on it to go into the chuck. This will be the top. Somewhere along here I'll be bringing it down to round. I'm all set here. I've got the tool rest in place. The blank is mounted between centers, and I've marked off a line here that will delineate between the upper part of the glasses holder, which would be this part right here, and the lower part, or the square part. So beyond this line, I only want to cut maybe a little bit for the curve here, or even start the curve writing it there. I can always extend that down, but once it's down I can't extend it up. So yes, let's get started. And I'm going to rough it down first, right along here. That's good. All right, I don't need to do anything else to there. Now I'm going to cut the tenon for the chuck. Already have my caliper set to the chuck mouth size. Make sure that I have that right. Yep, that's good. And for that, I'll be using a parting tool. Down to round. Almost. Okay, that is plenty small enough. Now take note, when you've got a piece like this, with edges here. Just make sure those edges are kind of centered on the lip of the chuck rather than right there. Just work a little bit better, I think. Get better grip that way. I've set this up with a 6-inch piece here so that I have about 2 inches for each part. And rather than measure that off, I'm just going to mark it like this. This, of course, doesn't need additional marking. I may cut this a little bit smaller, or I may not, depending on how it looks. Take a look at that. Okay. There's no real rules here on sizes or anything. The only thing I can think of to tell you about this is don't make this too narrow. And the reason is, glasses of course have something like 1 inch to 3/4 of an inch right there. And if you make this too narrow, the glasses will just fall all the way down. So don't make it too narrow, make it kind of steep. That's why I've only got 2 inches here. I could make it 3 inches, but this would be narrower. On the other hand, as long as you don't go down below, you know, this much, it doesn't really matter how long it is. Nice thing about the skew chisel is it leaves a really nice surface on there. I still got a little bit of tear out right there, but it's looking pretty good. I'm going to switch to a spindle gouge to get this part right here. It's a little easier than the skew. I think that's good enough. Almost ready for sanding. I'm going to go ahead and make a cut down here to mark off the length that I want. I'm going to do that with, yes, I'm going to do that with a narrow parting tool. But going in with the parting tool at a slight angle like this right here, you can see I'll end up with a little curve right there, which is actually kind of nice. And also it enables it to sit a little bit more stably if maybe you don't have the bottom perfectly flat. So I think it's time for sanding. And I'm going to use, starting with 180, 240, 320, 400, 600, and 800. I'm not going to show all of that. The only thing to watch out for in sanding is you've got these edges right here. It's really easy when you're sanding this area right here to kind of slip over the edge, which will whack your fingers pretty good. So be really careful when you're sanding here. This is the last piece of sandpaper. I've already sanded down to 1600 to 600, and this is 800 right here. I'm going to go ahead and put finish on it, but just on this part. There's no point in really putting any finish down here because I'm going to sand that by hand when I take it off the lathe. It's the last thing I do. So, friction polish on here. I'm going to stop with that right there. That looks good. All right, next step and last step on the lathe is to cut it off. Alright, there we have it. I'll get rid of that nub there. The next step is going to be back on the bandsaw. Now this is the turned glasses holder, just took it off of the lathe. We got the square sides here. Now I want to cut a slot right down there and there, about 1/4 inch wide, and that is for the glasses arms to fit into when you rest it on there. Just drops the glasses down a little bit more, makes it work a little bit better. Now, you could just take it, hold it like this, and push it up against the blade, and that'll certainly work for you. I also consider that a bit on the dangerous side. So I'm going to put it in some woodworking clamps. The flat orientation is established by the faces there. Slot's going to be down here. So whatever side of this you want to be the face of it, it'll be facing that way. Okay, this is going to be the face, so this is going to be the back. Put it in here, clamp it in. Since it's got these square sides down here, it's pretty easy to clamp this. It clamps in very securely. And now I'll turn on the bandsaw and cut that slot. Very carefully. About halfway down. Goodness. Okay, it's not bad. It needs to be sanded there. I'm going to do a little bit more sanding here on these sides, a little finish here, here, and inside the sanding slot to finish it off. So let's head back to the workbench for that. All right, pretty rough in there. Not really going to be able to smooth it down very much. I'm just going to use some 180 grit sandpaper just to knock off the rough edges more than anything else. Now, If you recall, on these surfaces, I finished them with a cadmium scraper before we ever put it on the lathe. They're really in pretty good condition. I'm just going to start with a piece of 220 sandpaper and just go over all four sides real quick. And now we are ready for the final coat of finish on it. Same finish I used on the lathe. We won't be able to put on a friction polish because there's no way to friction polish it like that. But I do want to get some finish right down in here into the slot so that it's really the same color as the rest of the piece. So it doesn't show up too glaringly in there, you know. The other place it needs finish is the four sides of the base and underneath it. So a little more finish, dab it on here and there, get it on the base just like that, and then put it on the sides like so. That's almost done. Last step, buff it a little bit to bring up the shine on this part as much as we can and refresh the shine here from having been moved around and worked. Let's go over to the buffer. And this is my homemade buffer. It's an 0.25 horsepower motor with sort of a screw-on mandible that holds these couple of buffing pads that I bought. And that's just padding that I wrapped around the motor because when I was buffing bowls, I was always bouncing them into the metal. So, a little bit of carnauba wax. Doesn't take much on there. And then just buff up the eyeglasses holder. It renews the finish very, very nicely. It tends to get a little dull sitting around the workshop being targeted by videos. All right, and there is the eyeglasses holder. It's ready to go.